Hello and welcome to Wednesday Warfare, where I review NXT and AEW Dynamite back-to-back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Two very strong showings this week, but which program would come out on top? Let's find out. But first, as always, like what you like, don't be a dick. Let's begin. Your first match is a rematch for the North American Championship as the new champion, Leon Ruff, defends against Johnny Gargano. As Leon makes his way to the ring, we get kind of like an emotional hype package basically for Ruff, kind of biographical, and suddenly it's interrupted mid-package by Gargano, who calls Ruff a joke. He hits him with a cheap shot and the rematch officially gets underway. And Leon showed a lot more in this match than what we saw in the match where he won the belt 1 week ago. As the match goes on, DAMIAN PRIEST shows up and distracts Johnny, but Johnny's still able to look good here. He hits one final beat and then Priest pulls Ruff out of the ring from the pinning predicament. He apologizes to Ruff and decks him, which ends up DQing Johnny and having Leon win the match by disqualification. So that's the first part of this, and my opinion on this will change, but after this first moment, my immediate thought was, how many similarities am I seeing right now between this storyline and the AJ Styles Dean Ambrose angle several years ago when James Ellsworth was involved? That was kind of where I thought this was going. Oh, but it gets better as the night goes on, so don't worry. Well, last week, Cameron Grimes beat up Dexter Lumis after putting a burlap sack over his head and saying he no longer fears him because he can't see Lumis's eyes. We didn't have to wait too long to get to the match they were very blatantly telegraphing in that segment. We have a blindfold match with these two here, and the big story is the comedy from Grimes. He's kind of like bouncing from corner to corner, trying to find Lumis and just taking pratfalls as Lumis stands perfectly still as Grimes does all the work. Grimes inadvertently attacks the referee and beats him up, takes the blindfold off, and sees what he's done. Then he goes after Lumis, who's still blindfolded and still able to dodge Cameron's attack. Then Lumis, his blindfold comes off, the eyes are there, and Cameron's spooked again, so they fight. Basically, it's no longer a blindfold match. There's two guys, there's no referee, they're not blindfolded, they're beating each other up, or I should say Lumis is beating up Grimes. Cameron's able to escape by going over the barricade fence, and that's where that pretty much ends. There's kind of the one weak point on the show for me on this night. You know, like, blindfold matches are very tricky to pull off in general, and usually they work better when there's like a full-throated live audience. There are people at the CWC and NXT, but like, the part of the joy of the blindfold match is to kind of like help guide the babyface, by sense of crowd reaction, essentially. And there wasn't really any of that here. So, this was kind of a flat point for me. Backstage, William Regal chastising DAMIAN PRIEST for getting involved in the North American title match earlier, but Priest shrugs it off, saying it was just a joke. But Leon Ruff, who's in the room, takes exception to that, and he slaps Priest in the face, saying he's no joke. Forget what I said earlier about the whole comparing Ruff to Ellsworth thing, because that's not the case anymore. With that one moment, I am way more invested in the storyline here, because that was pretty cool. I'm liking where this is going. We get a video of Shotzi Blackheart in a room full of sparks and blowtorches challenging Candice LeRae to a War Games match next month, and then we get Candice and Indy Hartwell taking on Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter in a tag team match. Pretty short and sweet here. In the end, Casey goes for a flying move to the outside. I'm pretty sure the cameras miss. Candice ends up winning for her team, hitting the Wicked Stepsister on Carter. Not a bad build for War Games, but we're not done with the ladies just yet. Well, back in October, Arturo Ruas was the final supplemental pick in the 2020 draft, going from NXT to Raw. Well, never mind that shit, because he's back here on the yellow brand and he's wrestling Kushida. It's a short, but it's pretty solid technical match here. It ends with Kushida rolling up Arturo very creatively to win the match. Kind of surprised considering you had a little video package hyping up Ruas before the commercial break, before this matchup here. So, I'm not sure what to make of Arturo going back to NXT after the draft to Raw, but maybe there's more in the future, in the horizon for Ruas on NXT. We had a video package featuring NXT wrestlers and personnel all giving their picks for the Women's Championship match later, split pretty evenly between Shirai and Rhea Ripley. Then we see Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez taking on the team of Ember Moon and Toni Storm. They're joining forces here temporarily because the numbers game between Dakota and Raquel has been too much. They want to take these two out here, but there's still some tension between them as to who's next in line for the Women's Championship. It's a really good match here, really good back and forth, and I'm especially enjoying the chemistry between between Dakota and Raquel. The more I see them and the more they work together, I'm really enjoying their stuff here. In the end, Moon with a dive to the outside to Raquel, who goes flying into the announce table, and then Toni rolls up Dakota to win the match. But right afterward, Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell return. They jump the winners, and then Raquel powerbombs the two of them. Some pretty big, indicating of what the heel side of the Women's War Games match is looking like here. Candice, Hartwell, Dakota Kai, and Raquel Gonzalez. Pretty solid team, and we'll see how the face team ends up shaping up by the end of the build. Here comes Pat's Pack. They roll up to the Capitol Wrestling Center because they want to hear what the champion Finn Balor has to say later on. Then in the ring, we see Timothy Thatcher going against August Gray, the former student of Thatch's Thatch Can Wrestling, who's been showing some fire and gumption in the last couple of weeks. By the way, sick retro tights from the former retro Anthony Green. Gray's showing some fire in this match, but Thatcher is way too crafty and experienced. Thatcher makes Gray tap out to the Gravit neck crank to win, and then afterward, Thatcher puts it on again, but then out comes Tommaso Ciampa, who then walks up and stares down Thatcher, and Thatcher says he has no problem with him, and he walks off. Then after the break, we see Ciampa being interviewed saying he wants to fight Timothy Thatcher. So we know where those two guys are headed, and good look even in defeat for August Gray. DAMIAN PRIEST makes his way out again for presumably a wrestling match. We don't know who he's going to be wrestling, but in the middle of his entrance, Johnny Gargano jumps him. These two are fighting all around. Then suddenly Leon Ruff joins in the action. In the end, he's able to eject both of them out of the ring and looks pretty sure of himself. There's this great moment here where he realizes the gravity of the situation as, Gargano and Priest kind of look at each other and look at him and they want to beat him up. He escapes, and then afterward we see him talking to William Regal, and Regal's like, what do you think you're doing there? And Ruff says he wants to fight them both to prove he's not a joke. Man, in one episode, I can't believe last week I was so skeptical of the Leon Ruff experiment, going, where are they going to go with this? He's being treated like a comedy act almost. And then in 1 week they turn that around and they completely make Ruff look a lot more credible and like someone you want to root for. And I'm really impressed with how they traded the arc this week. I liked what they did today. We also get some footage from the previous night where Regal goes to Boa's house because Boa has not reported to the Performance Center all week. You see he's got big bags under his eyes. He looks very tired and weathered. And basically Boa says that he and Xia Li are both in hiding because she is coming. That's what he says there as he closed the door and Regal's face looks very confused. I wonder, did he say she is coming as S-H-E is coming, or is it X-I is coming? Ooh, there's some curiosity there, but I am still very curious to see where this goes. Main event time, and my pick for match of the night across both shows this evening as Io Shirai defends the NXT Women's title against Rhea Ripley in her first singles match of the belt since losing it at WrestleMania earlier this year. This is a very physical match, very entertaining stuff, and these two are just beating the hell of each other throughout. One point, Io with a drop kick to Rhea, and it causes her ear to bleed, and a nice way for her to play it off by taking the blood and rubbing a bit of it on her face. Really cool stuff here. At one point, Io with a big sunset flip power bomb through the announce table to Rhea Ripley. How'd she pull that off? Rhea barely avoids getting counted out, but she's got herself in position for a picture-perfect Io Shirai moonsault for Io to win and retain. This was just a great match. Go out of your way to watch it because it was that good. There's good sportsmanship at the end, and then as they're leaving, the NXT champion Finn Balor makes his way to the ring. He doesn't even get an intro. He just walks in there after the match is over. First time we've seen him since TakeOver when he broke his jaw in 2 places. Finn says he's got 3 plates in his jaw now, and then as he's talking, out come Pat's Pack. And Pat McAfee basically runs down all the people they have destroyed since Finn's been gone. He basically tells Finn, give us the belt, because this is where it's ending up anyway. And so Finn has a cool line where he says, it's easy for the mice to play when the cat's away, but the cat's back, and look what I dragged in. The lights cut out, and it's the Undisputed Era. The foursome is back in full force. They rush the ring to beat up Pat's Pack. They has fight as we go off the air. And that was what a great 1-2 punch of a closing, bit for this show. Not only that kick-ass women's match with the championship, then right afterward we have this cool moment where Finn's back, and then there's this big confrontation, which we've been wanting for weeks here, between the Undisputed Era and Pat's Pack. And that's definitely, this is what the War Games match is going to be. And I'm here for it, the way they've been building up the group since, they took out Undisputed Era, and the way Pat McAfee's been talking them up on the mic, that was very cathartic to see the Undisputed Era come back here, and I can't wait to see the War Games match now. AEW opens up with a cool new intro, and then the first match of the night pits brothers versus brothers as Darius and Dante Martin, Top Flight, make their Dynamite debut against the tag team champions, the Young Bucks, in a non-title match. A lot of hype and expectation going into this thing because in their little introductory hype package, Top Flight talk about how they were inspired by the Young Bucks growing up, and last week, Matt and Nick, when they made this match official, said they saw a lot of themselves in Top Flight, so there's a lot riding on this, so to speak. This match is not like a balls-to-the-wall Young Bucks classic, partly because Matt is still not 100% because of his ankle injury, but still good performance by both teams. I think a great showing on this larger stage for Top Flight, who've been on Dark, but it's their first Dynamite match. In the end, the BTE trigger to Dante is what seals their fate, so the Young Bucks win the match. Afterward, though, the Hybrid 2 jump Top Flight and beat them up until the Bucks chase them off. Some sportsmanship to the youngsters, and that's how we end it. So good look even in defeat, and yeah, good exposure for Top Flight, and hopefully they can have a lot more success in the future. Then it's time for the bit that I was looking forward to the most all week, as the Inner Circle slays Las Vegas. It's actually a two-parter on the night. The first part was a lot stronger in my opinion, but we'll get to that. It's your typical like montage of debauchery in Las Vegas. MJF and Jericho trying to one-up each other, ordering stronger and stronger alcohol until Jericho finally tops it by saying, "Let's order Everclear," and they chug it down. If you've never had Everclear, don't. And then we see Conan show up, and he's their weed guy. They pick up another dude in the whole escapades. Wardlow and Jake Hager are beating up random strangers in the bar while they stare each other down. That's another thing I like. It was pretty funny. Is like all the pictures you see of the Inner Circle now with MJF and Wardlow, you constantly see Hager and Wardlow giving each other the side eye and everything, and all these different stories being told in all the pictures and stuff. So I'm liking how they're playing that up as well. The second part of this is basically it's an homage to The Hangover. They have a big toast on a rooftop. We cut to the next morning where everyone's destroyed, and so is the room. By the way, Elvis is a member of the Inner Circle now as of this skit, and like Ortiz is clearly hopped up on something as he's lifting weights. Sammy Guevara's been married 3 times, and there's a crying baby in the room. Actually, it's Swoggle who's in a diaper, and that's how the whole thing ends. So yeah, part 2 ended kind of like not as strong for me as part 1 did. I think that part 2, it was, Hangover was a fine movie, don't get me wrong, but it's like, it was just very, when you knew they were going to Vegas, you knew they were going to be doing the Hangover thing, and that's how it ended, and that was still entertaining. The whole thing I thought was very entertaining. I got a lot of belly laughs out of what they did, but yeah, part 1, stronger than part 2. We're showing this video that's a collaboration between AEW and Director X, who I've heard is a music video director usually. A very well produced piece with all these different wrestlers talking about their journeys and how AEW is part of a revolution. And then we go to a John Moxley promo where he talks about growing up with his tough, quasi-abusive father who always justified everything by saying, "We're the good guys." And he also subtly announces that his wife, Rene Paquette, is pregnant, so congratulations to them, by the way. And then he wraps up by saying he's John Moxley and nothing will change that. Very intense promo, and again, congrats to John and Rene. Orange Cassidy takes on Kip Sabian, and Miro has joined commentary here for this grudge match. It's pretty competitive, good, just like light heavyweight stuff between these two that tells a good story and just ramps up progressively over time. Miro, speaking of progressively over time, getting more and more frantic, shouting orders and instructions at Kip as the match is going on. Finally, Orange wins with the mousetrap roll-up, and then right after that, Miro bolts and gets in the ring and starts jumping Orange. The best friends show up and save the day, and that's pretty much it. The baddies run off, but yeah, it was a good match between these two. It's time for a contract signing between John Moxley and Kenny Omega for their world title match on December 2nd, but Omega's out there and we're waiting for Moxley. He doesn't show up, and suddenly we cut to the back and we see the champion laid out. His nose is busted. You hear the doctor saying he needs his neck stabilized and put on a backboard. Kenny seems very unimpressed by all this. He's basically saying Moxley's making excuses. Last year it was the elbow, this year it's a bloody nose, but you can't hide from me. Kenny nonchalantly, after some trying with the pen, finally signs the contract, and he's all done, and that's pretty much where it goes. Now there's this mystery of who could have jumped John Moxley. Who could it have been indeed? I wonder. Well, after 8 months away, Pac makes his in-ring return here, taking on the Blade as Eddie Kingston is on commentary for this matchup here. Early on at one point, Blade with a scary spot. He's got a stalling suplex on Pac and goes to like drop him gut first on the ropes, but he almost like shorts him and Pac almost lands right in his head on the mat. It's a good competitive match here, and there's some cheating from the Butcher and the Bunny on the outside. The match ends with a shooting star press into the Brutalizer for Pac to win. Pac grabs the mic and and goes to cut a promo to Kingston, but he's hit from behind by the Butcher. Kingston's talking trash to Pac as he's being held back by the Butcher and the Blade. When Rey Fenix shows up to make the save, but he gets beaten down by all of Kingston's family. Then out comes Penta El Zero Miedo, who's got a chair in his hand. What's he going to do? He looks like he's going to hit Fenix with it, but instead he goes for Kingston, so he chases all the bad guys away. So the Death Triangle has been reunited. We saw those three together, Pac and Rey and Penta, for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before the pandemic happened, so we didn't get to see what happened with them, but all seems to be right with the world now. Pac is back, the Death Triangle is back, and they seem to have a ready-made feud with Eddie Kingston and his guys. Looking forward to that for sure. After that match, we cut to the back where we see Jade Cargill, who we saw last week, who I guess now is just being referred to as Jade here. She Pillmanizes Brandy Rhodes' arm with a steel chair, while Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero stop the referees from interfering. So I guess that's a message that Shaq is coming, so watch out, Rhodes family. Then we go to the NWA Women's Championship match as SERENA DEEB defends against Thunder Rosa, the woman she beat for it a month or so ago in California. As the match begins, Tony Schiavone plugs the AEW Heels fan club, and JR chimes in, do they have a bake sale? Like, ugh, that was the worst. But that notwithstanding, heck of a great match with these two here. In the middle of the match, though, Reba/Rebel distracts the referee, and Dr. Britt Baker attacks Thunder Rosa, hits a swinging neck breaker on the ramp. You think it'd be the end of the match, but it's not. In fact, they go for several minutes after this with a lot of like roll-up attempts and stuff. Finally, Serena hits the Swiss special onto Thunder to win and retain. Really good matchup here. And then after the match is over, inexplicably, Britt Baker is not only back there, but she's hanging out at ringside where the wrestlers hang out in the front row. Thunder Rosa's right there and grabs her. Britt comes off really dumb for being right there after the match, after having just done that to Thunder Rosa. So they're fighting, and then it gets broken up and everything. But I think it was a great match, and then the aftermath of Thunder fighting Britt leads to the next thing. And Thunder is just great, fantastic talent, and Serena's great too. And I really hope that AEW can hold on to Thunder Rosa because she is just great, and she's adding a lot to the women's division right now. And then finally, speaking of the women's division, you've got John Silver and Anna Jay backstage, and John very intensely declares that Anna will be facing Hikaru Shida for the AEW Women's title next week on Dynamite. Anna says the last time they faced off, Anna was but a mere rookie, but now she is the new Anna Jay as part of the Dark Order. John Silver is very excited about this. In your main event, Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin take on Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. Before the match, though, we see a little video. Darby's on a church, Darby's in a church, Darby's on fire in a church. Classic Darbs. Taz makes his way from the announce desk to ringside earlier in the match, and at one point he even trips up Cody, and Arn is so pissed off by this, he just throws a chair in the ring and gets ejected for that. Darby is a bump machine for Cage here in this thing, but he's giving it back to Cage at times as well. Ultimately, Cage hits Darbs with the Avalanche Drill Claw to win the match. The beatdown continues, and then suddenly Will Hobbs shows up, and presumably to make the save for Cody and for Darbs. He picks up the FTW title, thinking he's going to, gesture to Cage, but psych, he hits Cody with it. The heel turn is complete, and Will Hobbs is the newest member of Team Taz after weeks of teasing it. Big shocking way to end the show, and now I can say I've been beaten up in the ring by 2 members of Team Taz. Neat! Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, NXT or AEW Dynamite, and this week my choice is NXT. Now technically, AEW had nothing really bad going against it, in my opinion, this week. I think it was a pretty solid show. I liked some of the matches they had, and I really enjoyed the Inner Circle Vegas skits. But I was just blown away by NXT this week. I think they had a really solid show. I was really impressed with the story arcs around the North American Championship with Priest and Gargano and Ruff. I love the main event for the NXT Women's Championship, and the whole closing segment with the UE and Pat's Pack and Finn Balor was also really good as well. I mean, yeah, AEW was good, but NXT was better and just kept me really captivated the whole show. But what did you think of AEW and NXT this week? Let me know in the comments section below. And just a programming note, stay tuned later this week for my Survivor Series predictions video. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.